Joining us now is Trivago CEO Axel Hepfer. Axel, thank you so much for joining us. Such a confusing time in terms of the headlines. The news seems different every day. How much are you seeing day-to-day changes? What are you seeing today?
Yeah, it's not really changing day to day, to be honest. But what we see since the Omicron variant has come up, that there is more uncertainty, and travelers are not as certain whether they can travel and whether they can return safely. And in particular, in Europe, a lot of countries have reimposed travel restrictions, quarantine restrictions, which is hurting predominantly international travel.
And so what are the trends you're seeing here in the U.S.? So it seems like a limit to international travel. Any other trends? Are people starting to book further out if they're not confident making plans for right now?
Yeah, for the next summer, it is a bit too early, at least what we usually see on our platform. So the focus is still on Christmas, and we do see a softer Christmas business compared to normal behavior. But it is still, relatively speaking, stable. And I guess one of the differences between the US and Europe is that the share of domestic travel is significantly greater, in particular, obviously, for the Christmas season.
Axel, how long is the window right now of visibility? In other words, are consumers making a bit of a gamble, booking, say, 3 to 6 months out, that by then some of this wave is through, international restrictions lighten up, and they can, say, do something that's non-domestic?
We don't really see that on our platform, but we tend to be in shorter booking windows, so more 3 months ahead. I do think, though, that we will have significant disturbance of the international travel market, at least for the next couple of months, and that we will only see a more normal pattern in early spring or early summer.
Axel, when we talked earlier in the pandemic, you talked about the pattern of more domestic travel, domestic vacation, maybe discovering some spots that people weren't used to frequenting before. Has there been enough time that you can see whether people are reverting back to those earlier pandemic patterns or not? What do you see in the data so far?
It's really like a roller coaster, to be honest. I mean, in summer, we've seen a much more normal behavior with some skew towards more beach and mountain destinations. But international actually picked up quite a bit. And now with more uncertainty coming back, there is again a move to domestic. And I think that will revert again when we enter summer early next year.
So, Axel, with all the data you have right now and the trends you saw last year, how do you predict next year looking? And do you think that we're going to see people booking longer trips, or they maybe sort of have a longer stay somewhere if they think they're going to be working remotely, perhaps in the next couple of months?
Yeah, I do think that that next year will actually be a lot more normal compared to this year. And the reason being that both consumers, travelers, but also governments will hopefully by next year get used to the new pattern, which seems to be the new normal, that international travel will be possible very easily during summer months with hardly any travel restrictions in the Northern Hemisphere, and that new variants put some risk on more complicated trips and more exotic trips over the winter months. And with some change in behavior and some change in destinations by the time of the year, I do think that we'll see an almost normal market starting really May, June.